when you have a serious chronic illness like MS, you don't know who to fear. Well, you don't know whether to fear or who to fear. And I think that that's just another isolating factor. Now, when the book was published, an extraordinary thing happened. I did a number of events, some of them with Meredith, at libraries. We started at the 92nd Street Y, which is a great cultural gathering place in New York. And then we did some libraries together. And we were told how many people at these gatherings to expect. And we were quite stunned that many more people than we expected showed up. I mean, literally twice or three times as many in some cases. But what was extraordinary about it was that they came in wheelchairs. And they came on walkers, and they came with canes. And they were very visible. And I was very struck by it. And at one of these gatherings at a local library, there were 300 or 400 people versus the 50 or 75 I thought were going to be there. And it began as an author speaking to an audience, and it changed very dramatically because a lot of these people came with their own stories. They stood up and started to speak, and then they spoke to each other. And Meredith and I were on the stage, and we sat back and looked at each other because it was very apparent that we were witnesses now, that this was no longer a group of people who had come to listen to an author. It was very emotional, and it was decidedly anti-physician, and there were physicians there, and there was a physician with a chronic illness there, and there were kids there, and what I realized was there are stories out there. You know, if you asked Don Hewitt, who created 60 Minutes, what he does for a living, his answer would be, I tell stories. He said that many times. Stories, in many ways, become what journalism is all about and become the most powerful communications tool that I can think of. And these people's stories at these events were very strong because they were authentic. These were real people with real problems. It was in this period of time that I decided to write this next book, Strong at the Broken Places. That title, by the way, comes from Hemingway, from A Farewell to Arms, in which he wrote, the world breaks us all, but afterwards many become strong at the broken places. And that book is really about strength, about determination to live lives the way we want to live lives, which is what it's all about. And I profile a woman with ALS, a fellow with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a college student with muscular dystrophy, a young woman with Crohn's disease, and a fabulous guy from Georgia who's got bipolar disorder. And they taught me a lot. They taught me a lot about living with MS by seeing how they live with their problems. You know, Bill Moyers once said to me on a trip somewhere, journalism is the greatest adult or continuing education course in America. And it really is. And I think Larry would say the same thing, that we learn so much about so many subjects we learn about other people, and we learn about ourselves. And these people are on their journeys, and we're on ours. And all of these illnesses differ in either subtle or dramatic ways. But there's enormous common ground in what we deal with emotionally. And in our struggles to have careers, to have families, to find satisfaction, and just to be happy. And those can sound so simple, and yet they're so difficult to achieve when you're fighting the odds. And it really is a fight. It's not just a fight physically. It's a fight in our heads. I think that there are 3 different sort of parallel tracks, and they all represent different battles. One is the disease itself, and you know what that's all about, and I don't need to dwell on that. The second is how the world sees us, and we live in a culture of beauty, of physical perfection, and I think people don't want to see us. It's not evil. It's probably benign. But it doesn't feel that way when it's affecting us in the streets or in the offices that we go to every day. The third track is, I believe, how the illness and the way people treat us fuse to create the problems in our own heads. You know, our self-esteem and our self-confidence. There's a lot out there that we deal with. And when I say we, it's all of us in this room, or the loved ones sitting next to us. It's also the other people all over the country who suffer from chronic illnesses. One of the things that I come away from this other book with is such a strong sense of solidarity with all of these people. Do you know how many people in America have chronic illnesses? According to the CDC, 90 million of us suffer from chronic illnesses. 90 million. Not only that, but it's tied to aging. 80% of people over 65 suffer from a chronic illness. 50% suffer from 2. We are an aging population. We're going to be the oldest population in the history of the country. The last line in the first chapter of this book is, "Welcome to your future." We are really all in this together. So I think it's wonderful to be here today and to be in the MS community. But I also see other communities, see other people, feel for them. And I wish we could all, I said to somebody, if we could all get together, we could form a political party. And we probably win. Anyway, well, thank you all very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.